There's a big battle going on in British Columbia today for the province's Premier Christy Clark. She, of course, won a stunning upset victory in the provincial election back in May, but she lost her own seat in the Vancouver Point Grey riding. Now she's trying to win a by-election in the Okanagan Valley in BC's interior so she can actually sit in the legislature once again.
It's kind of important since she's premier as of right now. One of her MLAs stepped aside to allow her to run the riding of West Side Kelowna, which is a longtime Liberal stronghold. Our British Columbia political commentator, Michael Geoghegan, joins us on the line now from Victoria. So, Michael, first of all, is this a foregone conclusion that she's going to win this?
Well, I shudder to make anything a foregone conclusion after the last general election, but it is one of the safest BC Liberal seats in the province. Ben Stewart, who was the Liberal MLA who gave up his seat, he won in each of the last two general elections with well over 50% of the vote.
There are a total of 8 candidates, Michael, running in this by-election. So does the Premier benefit from vote splitting?
Well, I think there's some benefit and there's some hurt. The BC Conservatives are still trying to mount a challenge. There may be some vote splitting there, but I think for people who are concerned about the wine, tourism, agriculture, construction industries that predominate in West Kelowna, I think most of those people are going to be like, yeah, what could be better than having a premier as your local MLA? So I would assume that most voters are going to vote to have a premier representing their constituency.
Yeah, but on the flip side, I mean, she embraced local issues, but realistically, won't she be too busy as premier to even do anything for this riding, especially a riding that she doesn't even live in?
Well, I imagine she'll address that by relocating houses. I imagine she'll turn quite a tidy profit selling a house in Vancouver and going to Kelowna. It's one of those things where obviously she'll, because of criticism like that or concerns like that, she will have to prove herself to the people of the Okanagan. And keep in mind, the two dynasties that we've had in British Columbia, W.A.C. Bennett and Bill Bennett, they both represented Kelowna area ridings, W.A.C. for 20 years and Bill Bennett for almost a dozen.
Yeah, well, because, as you know very well, the province is very much like different regions, almost like a couple of different provinces in one. You've got the island with its own political culture, you got the lower mainland, you've got the interior, you've got northern BC. So it's interesting to see her go from, Vancouver Point Grey to West Side Kelowna.
Well, her politics are actually going to have to shift because the politics in the Okanagan are much more conservative than I would submit in general in the Lower Mainland. Lower Mainland is more small L liberal. The Okanagan, I mean, that was the heart of reform country. I mean, the Okanagan is much more like Alberta than it is, say, like Vancouver Island.
Like you said, you're not going to predict anything because you never know with politics in this country lately. But if she was to lose, then what?
And I would still, if I was going to throw down a bet, I would bet that she would win. But I think that would be, again, it would be a tremendous upset, this time a tremendously negative one. I can't think of another instance where you've had a premier, although I can think of instances where you had a premier who didn't win in the general election and then there had to be a by-election. For them to then subsequently lose the by-election, that would be very, very difficult for her. I think it would put her in a situation where she might then have to seriously consider stepping aside as leader. But I see that as an unlikely scenario, and I think she will get in and she'll have relatively smooth sailing, at least for the next year or two.
Yeah, right, because it would be great for newspaper headlines and political pundits such as yourself if she was to lose, but the reality is she probably won't. What do you think her #1 priority is now, Michael? I mean, she won this major upset in May, likely to take this by-election tonight in the riding. What's ahead for Christy Clark? Where does she have to focus her priority?
She has to focus on economic growth. She made a commitment that she would get British Columbia back towards balanced budgets without raising taxes. We already pay, for example, the highest markup in taxes on alcohol anywhere in North America out in British Columbia. Our gas taxes are high. The Liberals did do something in terms of moving corporate income taxes down, but in the last budget they moved them back up again. So it's a situation where she has to focus on economic growth, and there's certainly going to be calls for, looking at the economic success that Alberta and BC have had, or sorry, Alberta and Saskatchewan have, that maybe BC needs to be a little less squeamish when it comes to resource extraction, maybe be a little more aggressive in that area, even if it's going to upset some voters in Vancouver and on Vancouver Island.
Well, we'll be watching. Thanks so much, Michael. Always great to
Thanks.
have you. Michael Geoghegan, political consultant.
Thanks.